It's a little more potent than your coffee.
To this month's comic book crowd show. Welcome again to another esoteric discussion of a topic which will enthrall you and make you smarter. Any event, thank you for everybody showing up. So we got Alan. How are you, Alan? Good to see you. Alan immediately to my left, one of the OGs here. And then to Alan's left, we have Doug Bratton. Doug, the author of Isolation, of which I have a copy back here. One of the variants of number 1, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Ooh.
And right below me is a happy birthday boy, Steve the Voice White, who is 29 years old today, I believe. Is that right, Steve?
Happy birthday.
Come on, don't get me too old.
Oh, 23. I'm sorry, 23. I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Good evening, comic family.
And the one, the only Mr. Matt Woods, another OG member of the comic book crowd. How you doing today, Matt?
You know, Joe, if I was any better, my name would be Anachronic Comics. That is how good I am doing. I truthfully don't even know what that means, but that's what all the kids have been saying. So I'm just
all the kids
getting out the new lingo.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all watching my videos now. So
100%.
Okay. Let's see who we have in the chat. So let's start off. And we start off with Tina. How are you, Tina?
Tina.
It should be good.
Hello.
Tina,
Hello,
we're going to have to wait and see. Okay. And Tina actually beat Las Cruces.
Whoa.
How you doing, Las Cruces? And look who's here. Steve, wait a minute. Steve White. We got double Steve White here.
Who's that guy? Who's that guy? The doppelganger.
All right. Let's see who else is we got here. Sid Lordley, Spinetix, thank you for coming. You know, I didn't catch your show last Saturday night because I was working all day and I was so exhausted I fell asleep at 10 o'clock. But I'll catch you this Saturday, that's for sure. That's for sure. It's a great show. Who else we've got here? Bulldog. Yes, I can start now. You're here. Thank God. We're waiting for you. Seth 11. Happy Halloween, everybody. That's true.
Hey, Keith.
Yeah, this is our Halloween show.
We have here. We have Seth, Spinetix. And who's this guy? Matt Woods.
Yeah.
He's warning the world.
That's it, warning the world. Well, we'll catch everybody else as they come in. So thank you for coming. So we had, we have a couple of IG groups where we just talk about stuff, trade stuff and all that. And there was discussion came up about what people generally called homage covers, although I don't know that they're all homage covers, but where someone duplicates another person's cover. Happens with stories also, with respect to that. But we're talking about covers primarily anyway here. And a lot of questions came up and say, is this appropriate? Is it illegal? What is it? And so we thought we'd kind of explore it in a comic book crowd show. And this is that show. So you're lucky you're here. So I just wanted to start with one particular area, with respect to myself and what I kind of think about, with respect to this. And that is 2 words, homage and swipe. So let me bring this up first, because I actually looked them up in the dictionary. Okay. All right. So here we go. So here's the first one. Let me see. Can I get it up there? There we go. So homage. Yep. All right. It's an expression of great respect and honor. And I put those 2 up there on purpose. All right. The Action Comics number 1 and that Amazing Spider-Man. And the reason I did that is because if you're paying homage to somebody, all right, it means you're showing great respect and honor to them. All right. And so you need to identify them, in my view. People here on the panel may disagree, but my feeling is you need to identify the person. And that particular Spider-Man one does say in the lower corner here, I don't know if we can get to see it here very much, but it does say, if you can see it here, it's a little fuzzy when it gets bigger. It does homage to Neil Adams right there. Okay. So as a practical matter, that's an homage. Now, what happens if it's not an homage, if you don't identify it and you just use it anyway? Well, then it's a swipe, okay? So here you got some examples of swipes. All right, intentionally copying a cover, panel, or page from an early comic book without crediting the original artist, right? These are definitions that I looked up and I agree with them. So the one on the left is kind of interesting. Is Planet Comics. That's Planet. I wrote this down. Let's see. Planet Comics number 55. They came out in 1948. The drawing was by Joe Doolin, Doolin, right? Planet Stories was one of those kind of pulp magazines where you open up and they have stories that are actually, typed out. You're reading with some pictures in there as opposed to a comic book. And if you, I can't bring that up really that closely because it won't be that good. But if you look at it on the airplane, now you can't read it here, but it says Anderson. And so my belief is that it was Alan Anderson who used to do a lot of these paintings for the pulp magazines back then. But the interesting thing is that Planet magazine was from 1948, and the Planet Stories, where he swiped that cover, was from 1949. And Doug and I were talking a little bit about that. So let Doug bring up a little bit about that, when we get back into the story over there. And on the right side, you have a Batman and Robin. That's number 395, and it's a Neil Adams cover. And on the right of it, you have Captain America 277, a Mike Zeck cover. Mike doesn't say that he got that from Neil Adams. So in that instance, I'm not saying whether it's good, bad, or what have you, but I'd call that a swipe because they swiped the cover, and didn't give the credit where it belongs. So if you didn't know anything about Batman and Neil Adams and you saw this Captain America cover, or if you didn't know anything about Joe Doolin, or you weren't a comic book guy, but you were that you picked up Planet Stories, you wouldn't know that cover was basically swiped from another cover. So I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's kind of the way I look at it. There are other things we can say, there's appropriations, things like that, but I think I'd like to keep it as simple as possible. So I'll open up that discussion to the rest of you guys. What do you think about those two definitions?
I think that's as murky as mud can be, Joe.
And why is that?
Well, no, I completely agree with your definitions, but like, there's so many ways to think about this. Like, do they know that they're like, is their intention to honor the person who did the original art? And like, we as comic book fans, we don't know what's going through their heads. Did they have permission that we don't know about? Are they friends on the side? Did they talk to each other? I just don't know any of that. And I don't know if anybody does, unless there's an artist that's out there saying, hey, they stole my cover without asking permission. And the guy who did it, he's like, I really was just trying to honor you. I don't know.
Matt, the funny thing about permission, though, is who owns the cover? Who owns the artwork? Is it the publisher? Does the artist, the guy who drew it, is it his, or he did it for a company? Therefore, it's their property, not his property. So
yeah, but they're not doing the exact same cover. There's a little bit of wiggle room in that artistic expression thing where unless it's literally the exact same image, and it couldn't be a different copyrighted material, because
I don't think copyright plays a part in this necessarily, because a lot of the swipes and the homages, but the swipes especially, are sometimes the same character for the same company, just a different artist and so forth. So getting into the copyright thing will be a little bit more muddy. Okay, let's put it that way with respect to that.
So my comment isn't that you were wrong, Joe. Please don't give me the esteemed Joe.
That's how I took it.
Matt.
I'm not gonna mess with that. But I'm just saying, like, it's so hard to tell what was actually stolen and what is in honor of a previous work. Like, hey, this is really good. I want to do something similar and pay respect to the previous artist or artists. And it's just hard to tell.
Well, I want to say one thing before I let Alan and Doug go in there. I think my belief is you're looking at it from the wrong angle. Okay. You got to look at it from the standpoint of the person who is buying the cover and appreciating the cover. All right. If you really want to, even if you have permission or whatever, and you really want to homage somebody, all right, what you need to do is to do what we have here for Spider-Man. Look at the bottom right there. All right. After Neil Adams, right there. Now, whether or not they had permission or not, that's besides the point. When I get that, if I didn't know anything about Superman, where is it? If I didn't know anything about Superman in here, Superman 233,
Sweet book, by the way.
All right. I might say, hey, oh, what is that about? It might actually give some impetus for me to go and find Superman 233, or what Neil Adams one is he talking about? So I think it's more from the standpoint of the consumer, you know, and whether the consumer actually knows, you know, what's going on with respect to that. That's my view anyway.
So Joe, I'll jump in for a second, and
Sure.
I think your definitions are fair. I do think the time in which something was done and the acceptability of that during that time play into this, which make those definitions a little trickier. So, for example, in the golden age of comics, you know, there's no internet, there's no reprinting of these books, or rarely are they reprinted. And you would just have artists who'd have hard copy files of pictures from magazines or old other illustrated books by other
or paintings too, like
paintings. Yep. Yeah. And they would use those as references, and that was considered very acceptable at that time. I doubt anybody would have called it swiping or plagiarism or and gone after someone or looked down on them for that. So now fast forward to the age of the internet, where everything's readily available and people get, you know, internet muscles. There's the culture changes, and now it's, oh, I found that you use that image as a basis of yours from that artist, and I'm going to go after you. I do think with cover art, especially very, very famous ones like the Action Comics #1 and several others, it started out being very common for artists to credit after so-and-so to make it clear, because they didn't want it to be viewed as copying. And while some people still do that, I think it happens a lot less now. And I don't think it's because the artists are trying to pass anything off. I think they're looking at it like, look, this is the 500th Amazing Spider-Man 300 homage, or this is done so often now by so many people, and it's such a normal, accepted part of the publishing world and culture that I'm just not adding it because I think it's redundant. It's just adding words to a graphic image. Everybody on the planet who's going to pick this up, or most buyers of comics who pick this up, are going to know where it comes from. So I do think, you know, we kind of judge these things and look at one thing as an homage and one thing as a swipe. Another thing we haven't talked about is recreations, which I think sometimes get confused with homages. And we're looking at it from our moment in time through our lens, versus understanding what was culturally accepted in the 30s and 40s.
And I do agree that there are some books that have been, I'll say, reproduced in another cover, been reproduced so many times that you really don't, people will know, most people will know, but not everyone, but most people will know. So, I mean, as a matter of fact, I have like a couple of things here. You mentioned, well, we did mention the Superman one. So that Superman 233, some people are saying it's an homage to Superman 11. I don't know that it is or not. I think that Neil Adams really kind of thought of that on his own. I've read a lot about it and I haven't seen him mention Superman 11 at all. But you mentioned even recreation. So one of the questions is, suppose you change it around a little bit or add something to it, So let me just show these right now. And we could take a look at that and maybe comment on it. These are really kind of homages to Superman 233, but arguably Superman 11. So let's take a look at this and see. So a lot of them were Superman anyway, right? Mm-hmm. And some that were not did say, after Neil Adams at the bottom, but some of them didn't. And some of them turned it around a little bit and what have you. So I agree. Now, 233 is clearly one that if you see it and you know anything about Neil Adams, you know right away what it is. Not everybody will, though.
It's true.
So, I mean, from my standpoint, if I was an artist and you did that and you wanted to really celebrate my cover, I would say put something at the bottom. I mean, how hard is that?
I'm going to jump in here.
Go ahead.
Now,
you're allowed.
Doug, you are by far the most accomplished writer in this panel right here. Okay. And I was just curious, you did a few different homages on Isolation. This is Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer.
I didn't want to bring that up
right here. Am I jumping the gun?
No. No.
Okay. And
I didn't want the cover police to come after Doug.
Then we have the cover police. Then we have the Comic Tom version right here. This is Tomb of Dracula #1 homage. Oh, there we go. And then we have the extremely talented and better looking Bratton brother, Dave Bratton, his homage right here. Okay, now this is Batman. Which Dark Knight is this #1? Dark Knight #1. Yeah,
Dark Knight Returns 1.
Now the thing about these, like somebody, they're just trying to steal off the popularity of these other covers. I don't think most people believe that. I think it's just, hey, these are really fun covers. Let's recreate them, have some fun. I think most people look at stuff like this as you're honoring previous work. I don't think anyone thinks that, you didn't steal from Frank Miller, the Dark Knight Returns #1 right here. Frank Miller's not upset by this. In fact, I guarantee you, Frank, I know you watch my channel, so you better like this, okay? Or else, Doug, we're going to come out after you, okay, Frank?
There you go.
But, by the way, I don't know Frank Miller, and he definitely doesn't know me. But, no, so I think these homage covers, and I was looking at that video you played, Joe. How much fun is that? So many great little covers, so many different characters. It just allows artists a chance to explore and, interconnect this whole comic book, marketplace.
Well, I got 2 more, and I could have made each one 5 to 10 minutes long without a problem.
But I think, Matt, you bring up a good point, right? Because everyone knows like these super popular artists. I think we have to think about the weight, right? Because I think I wanted to mention all the same things you guys all mentioned before, but from a different angle. I think cover swipes and homages are great for very popular artists, but I think where we might start seeing issues is if you see the opposite, right? Where you have small artists having cover swipes by big artists, right? I was trying to myself look for things like this. I couldn't find them, but I'm sure there's probably some of them out there. I think that's when this really becomes more of an issue where, you know, then they should really be giving some credit to like that lower or like less popular artists than they are.
I think you make a great point, because I think that would be looked more at like stealing work from someone else. Like, hey, I found an unpublished artist or writer or whatever. And there was actually, even though I'm not on TikTok, I think there was a big issue around this with TikTok dancing, where people would go out and find someone with, you know, who's a really good dancer, didn't have a lot of followers, and then some huge person on TikTok with millions of followers would rip off the dancing. And I don't know if Steve was the person ripping off the TikTok dances or not. Matt's pointing at you, but I do think that's a fair point. When someone who, when someone's just doing it because they like something and not attributing it, that's an issue. I think the average comic book homage to something very well known and very popular is obviously that's not the intent behind it. So
see, but then how do you make that determination? You know, so in my view, and maybe I'm looking at this more from a lawyer standpoint, even though I'm not talking about copyright law, I'm not talking about stealing, none of that. How hard is it to put in small letters somewhere, like after Neil Adams,
citing it,
after Jack Kirby?
So just cite it, and then everything's good.
To
No
me,
all forgiven.
If anything, that solves all the problems that might come out. Is it stealing? Is it not? Is whatever, you know? And you are basically then clearly bringing forth someone and giving them quote unquote homage, you know, with respect to what they did. So much so that not only are you reproducing it, but you're putting it there. And I would say that even with the, you know, even with something like this, even with the Steranko thing, you know, and that's the second video I got. That's why I introduced it. So I could show. And for these videos, guys, I'm going to show them. All right.
I really like Alan's thought on it. What if a big name creator, you know, just swipes off of a young, you know, a no name, an up and coming, you know, the starving artist, if you will. But then there's a flip side to that. What if that bigger name cites that lesser known artist? And maybe the lesser known artist gets a little more notoriety and ends up making more money off of that.
That would be terrific.
There could be a positive spin on that.
How about how much do you have to change it to be a swipe versus homage? Like how much are you changing the original image? Like that's a question there.
Well,
we're gonna have to go back to Joe's legalese.
If it resembles it, you know, I mean, because you do, well, you saw it in Superman. Let me show the Hulk one. All right, you can take a look at the Hulk one and see what that one looks like, and you could see some of them, I think, in that. They all look the same, except for one, right? They all look the same. If I can get this up here, except for the Ninja Turtle one.
Yeah, Ninja Turtle one looked almost original, same kind of idea. So they were using
so,
some of the elements.
Yeah, let me bring it up real quick. Right. So. And bring it, make it
facing the opposite
direction. So here's the Ninja Turtle one, right? So I think it does say. So I can't read it, unfortunately. I should have got a better copy, but I'm making it big. but as a practical matter, even though it's turned around, he's got 1492 on his back. I think he clearly was swiping, homaging, whatever.
Oh, 100%.
That helped.
Oh, definitely.
Number one.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was just it was done with a little more creativity or an attempt to change the pose, the angle,
Right.
which some artists like to do more, and some want to make it as close to the original as they can. It just really is artist preference.
Agreed. So I don't know, if you make changes, this is the Conan one,
You want to talk about close, right? Original versus new one. Now we're talking Matt's language here, right?
Yeah.
There's our suite.
So they're real close.
Yeah.
Almost a direct swipe of it.
Well, and some of you guys had asked me to put some stuff together to show some other ones, that are there, and happy to bring them up. But I'll bring up one to start off with that I put together if I could find it. All right, let's see, where is it here?
I have an example of what Alan was talking about, where a famous artist ripped off an unknown artist.
Oh,
You do?
I'll wait till we get to that.
I would like to see that. Yeah.
I'll just show this real quick then.
Yep.
So this is one that I kind of came up with that I thought was kind of interesting. If I can get it up there. There it is.
Hey.
So there you've got Jimmy Olsen. Well, actually you got Superman number, is it 38? Yeah, 38. John Bumley, 1946. And then you have Kurt Swan, in 1968 on the Jimmy Olsen one, basically reproducing it. Slight difference. The question here was, obviously he's invulnerable, so the guy's breaking all of this. And here the question is, how can Jimmy cut Superman's indestructible hair of steel? So there's a little bit of a nuance there, right? So it kind of makes some sense, but it clearly is. I mean, he clearly took it from this. I mean, you could say, well, he didn't know anything about it, so he just did this kind of thing here. But come on.
So is the comb kryptonite or is the scissors kryptonite?
Well, I don't know what the answer is because I didn't have that issue.
It's a good question.
The practicality is that he clearly took it from him, and again, that was like 1968.
But it stayed within Superman though. So
yeah, but it's still Superman. That's correct.
That was 22 years after. Yeah.
Right.
It was clearly.
I'll tell you, it almost definitely was, especially because of the pose and the angle. But I will say this: if you want to go down a rabbit hole, look up books of editorial cartoons of the year, and editorial cartoonists who have to take a very timely subject and create an image or thought around that on a fast turnaround. You will see 6 different editorial comics in different papers on the same day release an almost identical comic. And that does happen because sometimes people are mining similar ground and just have similar ideas.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
Or honestly, 22 years difference. Maybe he just read that comic book as a kid, or 22 years later, and just like had that little thought in his head, like, oh, this is a good idea, and completely forgot that he actually read it when it came out in 1946.
Yep. Don't know.
I guess that's possible, but I mean, they're so similar that it's doubtful. And I know back then, just from reading like the Alter Ego fanzine and other stuff that was going on in the 60s, that what DC did in their offices is they bound all of their comics together as they came out. So they had all these bound copies right there in the office. And I'm sure he looked through that, or maybe he saw it at one point in time and said, "Oh, that'll fit perfectly for this story," you know, and do something along those lines. And I agree with what Doug was saying. You know, it probably didn't happen that frequently back then, as much as it does now. You know, with all the different, you know, homages, swipes, and so forth. And so he did it, and big deal. That was it. You know, he just did it. And again, it's Superman, so it's not even a big issue from that standpoint. You know, but
Joe, there's a if you watch the YouTube channel Comic Tropes, he did an entire episode on the, and I just completely blanked on the classic pose. It's basically based on a sculpture in the Vatican, that a very famous Michelangelo sculpture, and you've seen it over and over with someone carrying the body of someone. The most famous examples would be the death of Jean Grey, the Dark Phoenix, and then the Perez version in Crisis. But that cover goes back to the 60s. That pose, or earlier, that pose has been used long before Byrne and Perez. So is Perez's influenced by Burns? Almost definitely, but Burns was influenced by those that came before him as well. It's a worthwhile video. I'd encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, Wellbore may have it. I mean, it could be the Pietà. It looks a little bit like that.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was blanking on. Appreciate it, Wellbore.
Right. So that clearly, and again, they would do that all the time with respect to this. There was one thing I did want to show that I came up with that I thought was pretty cool. This guy, Kevin Much, did this comic book called Captain Atom. All right, and let me see if I could bring that up right now. Let's see. Give me a little.
I like Captain Atom. That was a great series.
It was not. Well, this isn't Captain Atom. It's Captain Adam.
Oh, so this is going back.
Oh.
Yeah. Hold on. I got to find how to do this. Sorry, guys. All right. Here it is. Okay. All right. So here's. Is it up there? Yeah. Okay. I got to go back to the thing so I could see it better. So when you take a look at this, Kevin Much, he has this right there on this website, you know, and he's talking about this. So he says here, it's a narrative collage of images and texts from 56 comic books and 2 pornographic magazines. It was originally published in 1933 by Plug-in Editions in Winnipeg, Canada. There you go, you Canadians. You know,
blame Canada.
So what he did was he cut up all individual panels, put them together, right? Then redrew some of them just to make them consistent. Okay. Yeah. And you know, so that they would work properly with respect to the story. And then what he did when he put them together, he started writing a story. He says, how can I put these together so that they work? So every single one of these panels and pages here are taken from other books.
Yeah.
And what books were they? Let me see if I can get that up here.
He's got a list.
Here's the list. Beyond the Grave #2, Black Hood #3, all the way down. Magnus Robot Fighter. Some you've heard of. Strange Adventures. Teenage Love. You know?
And the creativity and imagination to create something like this from something that came before is undeniable.
Right.
Yes.
It's meant to be something unique and original while still taking from those that came before.
Did he cite them though? Did he cite them in the book, all those different swipes?
Yeah, well, I don't know if he cited them in the book because I don't have the book, but on the website he did. Let me bring it up so you could see it.
Swipe or homage?
My guess is he was very upfront about it if he's posting it on his website, but I don't know.
If he's citing it on his website, that's pretty upfront.
Yeah. So here's, I mean,
oh wow,
that's a big list.
Here's the list, and he says he couldn't find some of them So,
Yeah,
so this is not even the complete list
Mm-hmm.
that he had there. You know,
It's pretty cool.
yeah. So, I mean, when it's kind of interesting when you look for some of these things, you find out about it, but in some ways, it is kind of like a history and of some of these items. And if he did list them, though he has on his website, to me, it's kind of cool. I'd say, oh, let me see what this is about and take a look at some of it if I had the time to do that. But at least he did list them, and he says, this is what I did. He put together the entire thing. And I agree with you, Doug. That was very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that would have been really difficult to do, to try and put a narrative to all those oddball things from different books. Like,
that's really creative in all honesty.
Talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't even know if I don't think it's an homage or a swipe or anything. It's just taking what's there, creating it. And as it is, he redrew a bunch of them so that the faces would be similar and all that.
Yeah.
So basically, he took those panels, once he got the story together, figured out how the story would go. And what he did was he just glued them to a piece of paper as he went along and said, oh, this would be good. This would be nice. Mm-hmm. And he made up the story, and then he redrew it all so that it would match.
Yeah.
That reminds me of, those pictures where only when you zoom in do you see like hundreds of smaller pictures, but when you zoom out, it's a completely different picture. Yeah. That's kind of, that definitely reminds me of that, where it's created from something else, but it creates something completely new.
Or fine art, like collage art, or pop art that repurposes. I know there's big arguments over, especially Liechtenstein, but Liechtenstein.
That's right. Liechtenstein has a big. There was a whole article about him and what he did with respect to that. There's another one, just so that I can, since I did the research here, if I could find it, let's say. There is another one here that's kind of interesting because there was, and I'm not bringing this up to criticize anybody. I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I think having these homages or swipes, it's got a lot of fun, and
there's some really cool stuff.
I kind of like it, although I do think that the companies do this just to make money.
Oh yeah.
If it's sold in the past, it'll sell in the future.
It'll sell again, let me get the I'm gonna have to stop it and then do it again. But there's one artist that is well known for doing a lot of these things. And I'm trying to see if I could bring it up here. Okay. And I found a guy who put this stuff up on his particular website.
Oh yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Let me go back to it so that I could work with it a little bit more. So basically what it is, I don't know if I can make this bigger or not. Let me see. It's about as big as I can get it right now. But so this guy here, if you take a look at them, hopefully you can see it well. There are a number of different things that he did. So he took photographs, for example.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And he would reproduce the photographs. Okay.
Use it as a reference.
Do a bunch of things like that.
Yeah.
All right. He also then took what some other people did and reproduced them. Here's a photograph with a football team, and he just basically reproduced it, putting in his I don't know,
the
his
monsters,
warrior, whatever, in there, And this is where he got some of it from.
That's some cool helmets.
I love this because he just reproduced the whole thing. Here's one where he took basically Boris Karloff's The Mummy, and what the person did here is move the picture around so that it matched. So what he did was he turned the pictures around and then he drew it. This is a cool one. They call this photo tracing. All right. Here's another one. Here's some more. Here's another one. So he took photos of people in some instances and basically reproduced them as comic book people, So, I mean, as a practical matter, it's just kind of so interesting that there are people that did that. And he was criticized by some for doing this quite often. But I think it still shows some ingenuity. But in some instances, how good is that? I mean, does that make any sense? Should you do something like that? Where you're just taking people. I mean, to me, it almost feels like he's lazy.
Well, and Joe, I do think there's degrees where artists will criticize others. Finding a photo reference for a certain pose is not uncommon. Right. If you're lightboarding it and pretty much tracing it just to save time,
right?
People tend to look down on that more than hey, he found a cool image in a magazine and changed it up and changed the angle, and you might see the original somewhat reflected in it versus like, yeah, I can put the two pictures together and they're identical. You literally just trace that. So yeah, light boxing is
CJ said it. Yeah.
I don't know. We're talking about art, right? And art is in the beholder, the eye of the beholder. Okay. And like, there's so many ways to interpret it. I'm seeing that, like I kind of like the picture thing you were showing up. I forget. What did you call that, Joe? Picture something?
Oh, photo. I forgot now.
I know. I just heard it myself. I'm blaming myself for forgetting.
Photo tracing. Photo tracing.
Photo tracing.
Okay.
Honestly, like I've seen that before. I think that's pretty cool. I think it's the opposite of lazy. I think that's adding something to what is already there. It's unique. Now, if everyone is doing that, yes, that's starting to get lazy, but it's a relatively new thing. I don't know. Like, I'm from Pittsburgh here, and Andy Warhol's a big thing here. The Andy Warhol Museum is in Pittsburgh. And the guy literally did Campbell's soup, okay? Like, he drew paintings of Campbell's soup, and everyone loves it. And I'm like, it's kind of like the picture thing, but I don't know. If somebody finds enjoyment to it, is it really being lazy, or is it just being a different way of being creative? And that's not literally, I don't know that answer. And I don't know if that's an answer that anyone can actually tell for sure. I think that's all up to opinion. And so, like, art is such a hard medium to judge, especially for someone like me who's not an artist. I get art. I've taken art classes in college. Like, I have my foot in a door to where I can understand a little bit of the language, but I don't pretend that I know dirt about it because I really don't. But it's so hard to judge for someone like me because I don't know, it's pretty abstract some days. And then other days, like when they're trying to be a realist, you're like, well, that just sucks. It doesn't look anything like that stream and that tree.
But I'm not saying they have to make up stuff from scratch. I mean, CJ says they make it to make deadlines is a lot faster. I agree with
business.
that. But as a practical matter, when I'm saying lazy, maybe that was an overstatement, but I think if you have a concept and you're trying to draw something and you see a photograph of somebody and you think, oh, I'm going to use this as my model, I mean, that's fine. I mean, Ross does that all the time. If you see Superman or Captain, the original, there's so, he actually has, and you can see him, he does this, he shows it on his, I guess this is YouTube channel, his videos that he shows. He's had people pose for all of these particular characters going back to Kingdom Come, Captain Marvel, all these characters. Yeah. And when he draws them now, they look the same. They look the same. Mm-hmm. Why? Because he takes out the photographs. Okay. Now, again, he did take the photographs. So it's a little different. So I'm not contesting that. I think it's fine to do something like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes people will look at things, poses and whatever else, and decide I'm just going to reproduce that. I don't know. To me, it I don't know. It kind of speaks to, I hate to use the word, but kind of like stealing. But it kind of speaks to a lack of energy or something along those lines with respect to that. So I'm not saying if I want to use, like if I would be putting together a comic book, and I'm thinking about one, I'm taking, Doug, I took your suggestion and I've been working at it, but it's really hard.
Good. It is, but you're doing it.
But as a practical matter, you know, I'd probably put Matt Woods in there because look at that unique face, you know. But maybe I'd put a mustache on him or something like that to make it look a little.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Joe, I want to hop in for a minute because I do think something that's really important is that for any creative person, most people start out by copying. You know, whether you're a child drawing for the first time, copying other images, whether you want to write and you haven't developed your own writing style, so you're reading a book by somebody and you're trying to make your book sound like that book. That's a normal part of creative development. And then obviously, as you work towards your 10,000 hours and you develop your chops as an artist or a writer or dancer, musician, composer, whatever, you learn to value creativity more and understanding that, like, oh, instead of trying to draw my picture to look like that picture, it's, well, what are the things that I've learned from all of these different artists, and I'm blending it into my own. And that happens over time. And I think we need to be, and I don't mean we, the five of us, but I think everybody needs to be a little more forgiving in a world where everybody is posting their artwork from day one while they're still learning online. But with that said, I think that's when the pitchforks come out, is when someone who is a professional and they're making money and people perceive them as someone who should be at a level where they are creating unique work, and people don't like it when someone is at a certain level and it seems like they're taking shortcuts to a degree that maybe they're just copying from somebody else. So I think that's an important thing to consider in the conversation.
Right. And I did think that some people, some artists, some well-known artists were basically, when they were starting out, were basically cloning some other artists. So they would, I mean, John Romita Sr., when he first started on Spider-Man, was it number 38 or whatever like that, Stan Lee said, could you make him look a little bit like Ditko? Ditko's Spider-Man, you know, until he just decided I'm not doing that anymore. And it became his own. So, I mean, that was a directive. But as a practical matter, a lot of people, when they started off looking at artists that they really liked, and their style kind of followed that artist type of style, you know, and
Bill
even
Sienkiewicz,
like it in some respects.
Yeah. Bill Sienkiewicz got his first work on Moon Knight because he could do Neil Adams, you know. And when you really go back into, you know, Walt Disney Studios and Bob Kane, they would literally just hire artists, say, draw in my style, and you're a ghost, you're getting no credit, my name is going on it. So that's always been part of the process. Matt, I know you had mentioned you found examples of more well-known artists taking work from lesser-known artists. That really interested me.
All right, before I have to preface what I'm going to show you, we're a very serious crowd. And every now and then we need a little bit of levity, okay? So I'm going to talk about a very underappreciated, not very well-known artist for Marvel, who, he was just a young guy at the time. He did this brand new series, Spider-Man #1, okay? And he created this art here. Honestly, people in the community have forgot what the name of this guy was, okay? But see this? But then this was 1990. Now, 1993, this owner of his very own publishing company, part owner, this guy named Todd McFarlane, he did another cover in this Spawn magazine. Do you think he would have shouted out the younger artists? I don't even know that he did. I looked, I don't see anything on there that references the previous artist. Just the guy who drew this McFarlane guy. He wrote his name on here, but he wouldn't even do this. Now, guys, tell me, is this an homage or I'm gonna do the country bumpkin, the homage? Is this a homage or is this a cover swipe? I don't really know about that one.
But
I'll let the panel decide.
Neil Adams homaged himself or swiped himself a number of times.
Yeah.
Lots of artists do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually a kind of a fun thing to do about that. But no, sorry guys, I just had to throw in a little bit of Matt Wood's levity on there. But I want to go back up. Comic Book Journey. He has a comment down there. We're talking about different swipes, different, like stealing from different people. He says it's still better than AI. And I absolutely have to agree with him on that one. I'd rather an artist do a little swipe of somebody else's original art in creating their own original art than just a computer, somehow pixelating some image together that no human being that actually created. So all this, talk that we're doing, hey, it's still better than a computer doing it.
Yeah, we could go down a whole rabbit hole.
That's a whole
AR.
Yeah. That rabbit hole doesn't end. It just keeps getting deeper.
I still like my Liberty Lantern though from last month's show. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yes.
And Cody, whatever.
Conbury or
Cody and Barbie comic.
Yeah, Cody and Barbie.
That was cool.
Yeah. That was a complete, AI.
But it comes down to making money, right? The comic book companies are out to make money. If you got a cover that really works, they homage the crap out of it because they find and they go back through the sales data that it's sold like crazy. You want to make some money.
Yeah.
Got a new #1 coming out. All right, let's throw it out there. Yep. Spider-Man 300. How many times?
And I think it works, because people buy them. Now there are some. I think there are some, and maybe I need to look. And maybe this is a video, but there are probably some homage covers that are more desirable than others because there's so many out there.
Yeah.
And maybe that Spawn one that you just mentioned might be one because it's the same artist, and he's kind of brought that into his own comic book and company. I don't know. But there's probably something along those lines because there's so many there that they can't be worth a lot. And I don't know that people will pursue them. But I do think that if you are collecting a particular comic book and that's one of the variants, and that it's that it's a swipe or an homage of another cover, you're likely to buy it. I was doing some of that until I said, "What am I doing? Why am I doing this?" So,
got caught up in the FOMO.
Now, there are some things about the swiping, the homage, if you will. Like, some of them are so classic that the actual homage itself is classic. And Joe, can you bring up the Batman books that I had sent you or asked you if you could?
Hold on a second. Let me just bring it up here. It'll take me.
I'm throwing this out at you left field, but some like the homage. That's so rough to say. But anyhow, some of those are so well done that the homage itself is very classic. And what I'm going to show here, Detective Comics Detective Comics 31. It came out at a cover date of September 1939. It was actually published July 30th, 1939. Bob Kane, one of the most famous artists ever, he did that classic cover. But then Neil Adams, somebody that we also think of as an amazing artist, he goes ahead and does his Batman 227. It's a direct homage, okay? And this had a cover date December 1970. It came out October 20th, 1970. Mom, if you're watching, you were a 13-year-old girl that day because that was the day before her 14th birthday. But anyhow, that cover in itself, people now homage Batman 227. And some people don't even know that there's a Detective Comics number 31 out there because it became so well loved in its own right.
Mm-hmm. It's like that Superman 233. They didn't know about the Superman number 11. And so Neil did it better. Just like CJ says here with this one, even that one. When he did it so much better, that became the book that people went back to, so.
But did I say 331? If I did, I 31. Apologize. It's definitely Detective Comics 31. But here's another example of homages that people don't even know are homage. Bring up those other 2 books I showed you, Joe.
Okay, just gonna give me a sec.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do it.
Joe's an amazing human being.
Here it is.
Maybe not as good as Alan, but really close. But all right, I got a smile there. Okay, that's all I wanted. Now, this Conan the Barbarian number 33, that came out in December 1973. Unless you're a Conan fan, you don't even know it. That was a Herb Trimpe and John Romita did some cover up on that Conan cover. But this X-Men number 100, okay, this is a very classic cover. And this is, the old X-Men versus the new X-Men. Dave Cockrum, Danny Crespi also worked on that cover. But people don't even know about this Conan book. And honestly, I'm sure somewhere along the line, that was a homage off of something else. Because that is just such a, I don't know. To me, that's such a classic cover that I'm sure was done before 1973. But that's an example of something people don't even know about the original. And I talked about Detective Comics 31. That is a super famous cover. But people might know the Adams cover more.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
But I don't think anyone knows about this Conan book that
Jackson
came out.
Roy Corp says Defenders 100.
Yes.
Yep. You guys know that? Yeah.
I forgot about it, but I'm thinking about it in my head right now.
All right.
Ooh, and comic Nauman, he says Wonder Woman 177. I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah, that's the layout of 2 lines of people with someone at the focal point has probably been done many times by many different artists. Yeah.
CJ, I don't know if I agree with you, sir. I think I'm going to respectfully disagree. Nothing's better than Conan, okay?
Oh, boy. All right.
What about a brand new book that just came out that homages something from the 40s?
Ooh, what's this?
You got it?
Ooh, let's see it.
All right, let me make you big.
As soon as I saw the book come out, I went, I know that from somewhere, and I had to look for it, and I figured it out.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Rosie
the Riveter.
Yeah, it's probably been done a lot of times too. I'm sure we could find a bunch of them.
Yeah, 1942.
It's awesome.
Done.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I mean that's.
I love how we all recognized it.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as I saw it, I was trying to rack my brain to try and figure out where it came from.
Oh, Rosie the Riveter.
That's because you're so young at 23 years of age.
Exactly. That's the problem.
It took you a little bit longer. Yep.
Yes.
Alan, you got some stuff that I think you want to bring up or talk about, right?
Oh, it was a lot of it was some things that people showed before, but I think some of the ones that people talked about in the chat are definitely amazing. Amazing Spider-Man 300, like McFarlane, homaging McFarlane. Another really good one that I found is like Amazing Spider-Man 50. There is a lot of different things to this, and they even actually do it in the movies when Tobey Maguire kind of put his suit in the garbage can as he was walking away. So it matched that pretty well. Had to put this on there, obviously. And one of my favorite homage covers is actually 141, Uncanny X-Men 141, because you'll always see like these even in TV shows and video games, you'll see here Rick and Morty and Mega Man. Like there's a lot of different medias that will homage cross different cross comics into like books and into cartoons as well. So I think these are it's not just comics, but I think I'm wondering now also if we also take from cartoons. So I know one of the things before was people mentioned like taking poses from people. I kind of censored these myself. So yeah, the Jack Kirby, even Sue Storm, kind of different poses from other magazines that are not even comics. Like you'll see artists who have models in the room and they're painting off of that model, and someone homages off of that painting. So it definitely goes down a big rabbit hole when we talk about homages.
Well, since you mentioned Rick and Morty,
Yes.
hold on a
Oh, I
second.
have never seen
Back
this.
to the Future.
Oh,
Isn't that cool? I think that's
That's
super
very
cool.
cool.
And you know they're based on Doc Brown and Marty McFly.
Yes,
Yes.
they are.
Yeah. Okay.
So that
rip
that
off
So
whole
of
this
thing
is
kind of a-
Inception.
They're
Oh my
almost an
God.
homage.
right. So
I think I saw something, a video where Amazing Fantasy 15 was an homage of a Spider-Man, or forgive me, a Superman book.
yes, I'd said that.
Yeah, okay. I was like, see, I watch the videos. I forget which issue it was. But I didn't know
think
that
it
before I
was-
watched your video.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but there was one where he's basically in the same position and he's flying and he's holding a guy and there's the buildings behind him.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a similar look to it. And Jack Kirby has been known to do that type of stuff. So we've talked a little bit about it as well, you know.
Yep.
But you mentioned this is my last video, so I might as well show it here. You mentioned Amazing Fantasy 15. So let's take a look at what I put together for that. Now, the one that I like the best, Dan Slott.
Nice.
That is awesome.
But that Spider-Man 669 rather, they had a whole slew of them. It's just crazy that they had a whole bunch of them there, you know, that they just did over and over again, with some of them being the artists, other ones being different. It's just kind of crazy. So then they just went nuts on it with respect to that. But I love the Dan Slott one. I don't have that one. I would actually go and buy that one. Anyway. So we've gone over an hour talking about this, and we haven't convinced Matt Woods that people should put down after something or other.
I'm a top sell, brother.
You know? So, I mean, any kind of closing arguments or statements with respect to that? Anybody have anything they wanted to say?
Yeah. I think it's fun. I think it's a cool part of the comic book industry where we get to go and see other people's vision on other art. And people aren't truly upset by it. In fact, they're honored by it. I've read articles where, you know, Todd McFarlane talks about everyone that's homaged his ASM 300. He doesn't like to sign those at CGC or anywhere. He actually draws a line on that, but he still likes them because you know it's paying respect to his art that it was so good. So I like the fact that we can do these homages, and without a doubt, I think somebody said it here. It is a money grab from the companies, but it's fun. You know, like it's a cool part of this hobby.
Well, and it's something you can collect if you want. You know. So
I'll piggyback off of Matt and just say I think it's a lot of fun, but there's a place in my heart for artists trying to create the next original art that might someday be homaged by other people. So I have a great deal of respect for that.
Yes,
agreed.
Yeah, and again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything like that. Just if I'd have my druthers, except perhaps for, some of the big ones that we spoke about, it doesn't hurt to put down where you copied it from at the bottom. It just doesn't hurt.
Mhm.
You saw some of them are just really tiny at the bottom, and
or put it on the inside.
it's not a bad thing to do, I don't think. So you don't have to do it, but what the
just
hey?
put a little shout out to there. I'd be,
Yeah,
I agree.
That's kind of my view on it.
It's probably best practices.
That's what I would say.
Best practices, good.
Best practice.
So with that, let me thank Steve. Oh, first of all, Steve.
Yes.
Tell us what's new with you.
I have a channel now.
Steve has a channel.
I just did it last week.
I haven't found yet. I'm really after this is
Nice.
over.
I've got 6 videos up.
What's the name of your channel? Is it Steve the Voice White or what?
Comics of the Voice. Actually, now you guys, Alan and Joe, I got to put it underneath my name now. I got to do that now.
What is it again? No wonder I couldn't find it. Comics what?
Comics of the Voice.
Comics of the Voice. Okay.
Yes. That's what I have called
if
it.
I had, I would have put the link in there. But okay. So Comics of the Voice. That's good. So don't forget to look that up and subscribe to Steve White's new channel, Comics of the Voice.
Of the Voice.
Of the Voice. All right.
They're my comic books, or they're ones that I'm curating at this point in time in my life.
And it is, and for everybody watching, it is a spin-off of the Anachronic Comics channel. It's a spin-off.
100%.
Oh, it's an homage.
That's the way I kind of look at it.
Homage.
It's called the Cohesive. Cohesive comics instead of.
Hey, I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away Steve's videos. But guys, you got to check it out. The man literally has 2 rooms in his house.
There it is.
That are comic book rooms. I don't know anyone else who has
Thank you,
2
Thank you.
comic book rooms.
Yeah, so Tina has the link there. So click on it click on it, go to it, subscribe to Steve's channel. Let's get him to 1,000 this week, okay?
Yes.
I got to start putting out more videos. I do have one on the queue, but I haven't put it up yet.
Yeah, don't go crazy. When I first thought I was going crazy doing this. Take your time, do what you want to do.
Exactly. I got to pace myself. I'm going to pace myself.
Get it, and just do it. In your own time, as you want to do it, and so forth. And that'll be fine. That works.
Yeah, no more than 10 videos a day.
No more,
anything more than that, that's just overkill.
Yeah. So. Anybody else, Matt?
I don't have anything. I do have something new coming up. I went on a hike to the Grand Canyon with my son and his friend, and we went down to the bottom of the river to the Phantom Ranch, and I have a lot of video. I just have not started splicing it together and making video, but that's coming very shortly. Hey guys, it's not a comic book video, but it's just kind of cool. And my son asked me to make it because him and his friend, they were like, yeah, I want to watch that when I'm old. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to put a video out for you. So that'll be coming up soon.
Yeah, CJ says 11 videos a day is not tolerable.
Yeah, just 10, no more. But guys, I want to shout out one of my inspirations for hiking, a guy whose YouTube channel is called Climbing Comics, because he climbs places. In fact, he went to the top of Peru and he held an ASM 110 in his hand from the top of Peru. That our very own Alan right here, who's like the best hiker I know.
Comics around with him. He's at the top of a mountain and he's showing up
comic books. That is freaking awesome.
People look at me weird when they see me take out this random book from my backpack.
Because of you,
that's what I tell them.
Yeah.
Because of Alan, I've had that book. I had it on Bourbon Street in New Orleans one time. I've had it in Spain holding it. I've had it at the bottom of the Grand Canyon holding it. I've had it in San Francisco at the bottom of, what is the name of that street that just zigzags back and forth?
Oh yeah,
Lombard Street.
That's a road.
Lombard, yeah.
Lombard.
And so I'm holding it at the bottom of Lombard Street, and that's all because of Alan going up to Peru. So, Alan, you really you do inspire me, man. Keep climbing, buddy.
Thank you.
So, Doug, how about you? When's the next issue of Isolation coming out?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say I will be at GarageCon in a couple of weeks signing. I can't make promises because it's up to an artist and if I have permission from Reggie, but my hope is that for people there, I can show a preview of the cover for the next issue of Isolation.
Oh, cool. Yes. I'll be there to see it.
Fingers crossed.
I wasn't going until
Hopefully.
now. Now I got to be
there.
there.
Matt, come swing by and pick me up.
We're coming up there, buddy.
Swing by.
It's only a 16-hour detour. We're coming to get you, Steve.
No problem.
Alan, anything you want to talk about, announce?
Nothing new on my end, but always glad to be on the show. And hopefully this year I just make some content here and there.
Show. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have something coming up next Friday, and it is the, if this gets up there, it is the second Anachronic College of Comic Book Knowledge. And we have the Comic Vet as our applicant. As in people that saw the first one saw that Rob Fat Stacks of Comics, now you have to call him Dr. Fat Stacks of Comics because he did go all the way and got a doctorate of comicsology. And if you haven't watched this show before, the whole point of this is to give some money to charity. And they have 5 questions. If they get all 5 right, $5 a question. If they get all 5 right, it's doubled to $50. So the Comic Vet is going to do Tunnel to Towers Foundation, which is going to be great. That's one of my favorites on Friday. And he wants questions on Spider-Man. So Gary, who is at a school event with his son tonight, so he couldn't be here, will be my professorial co-host on that. And so I'm looking forward to that. And if anybody here wants to be on, just DM me on Instagram. I'm looking for somebody for December, January. You pick a 501c3 available in the United States charity. Let me know what it is. I would just want to check it out, make sure that it's kosher. And if it's okay, you come on, you tell me what topic you want.
Kosher.
And I try to make it very simple for you. So you can go through and hopefully be able to win $50 for the particular charity. So again, that's coming up next Friday.
To do that.
And I have a video on Wednesday too that I'm finishing up as well. So that's coming up pretty soon. And I kind of like this show. I'm hoping that it takes off, but I need people to volunteer. So make sure you let me know. All right. And in all my videos, I think it's in this one too, there is a link to a form that you could fill out, and I'll get the form. And you just put your name and so forth, what the topic is and what the charity is. And then I'll get in touch with you. After this Friday,
cool.
It's all open. So anybody can do it if you like. All right. So what's this? Are you familiar with Mission 22?
There's one you'll have to look up.
But I will look it up as soon as I'm off. See what it is. All right, guys. So again, thank you, Steve. Steve, late addition. I appreciate you, Steve. No Doug, problem. Again, thank you very much. Doug's idea. Alan and Matt, I can't do this without you guys. I love you guys. You're fantastic.
It's all you, brother.
Matt, if you didn't have those arrows, I wouldn't know what to do with you, you know? And of course, the chat, you had some great guys in the chat, you know, and I'd like to be able to, maybe some people in the chat would be interested in being on the Anachronic College. Let me know. Just IG me and we're all set. And
anybody but Jackson. Jackson doesn't know anything.
Well, Jackson's going to, hopefully Jackson would show his face if he does that. But any event. So I want to say thanks again to everybody and people that watch it on the replay. Thanks for showing in the replay. And we'll see you next month, end of the month, with the next comic book crowd. We already have a great topic that Milt suggested. And I've been looking doing some stuff on it too. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's right up your alley, Matt Woods. All right.
Excellent.
Take care, everybody. See you.
Good night.
Night.